Welcome to the Enterprise Architecture Radio and a Happy New Year to everyone. I've been reading about it here and there on social media and such, where people are saying that they want to be enterprise architects in a consulting position and not take leadership roles. They would like to advise, but they don't want to take management responsibilities. Now, I've been talking about this on Enterprise Architecture Radio, that enterprise architecture is not really a title or a designation. It's more a function, a mindset, and a source of knowledge. And I think that it's very important for enterprise architects to acquire power and authority. Primarily because when they give advice to somebody based on the knowledge that they have to depend on somebody else to take the strategic decision that makes sense. To help you understand this, I'll tell you a story. Let's take a fictitious organization. Let's say I keep talking about healthcare, so this time I will talk about financial services. Let's say there's a financial services organization and they are running two major enterprise applications. Well, they are running many enterprise applications, but two major enterprise applications that have a ton of data within them. And the applications have been set up in such a way that other applications access data from either this application or that. So let's name them application A and application B. So some of the applications, smaller applications, access data that is being stored by an application A, and there are some other applications that are accessing data from application B. Some of the data is redundant. What that means is the same data is being stored by application A as well as application B. Now these are COTS applications, commercially off the shelf, which basically means that they are application vendors who provide these application services. And there is a license fee involved, etc., etc. Now, the leadership comes to know that there is some redundant data that is there in both the applications, and technically both the applications are similar in nature. They provide the same kind of services. So they engage the enterprise architects who take a look at the scenario, and then they say that, what do you think we should do? So the enterprise architects, with all their knowledge, they come up with the idea that we should build an enterprise service bus. Now, I call it enterprise service bus. It could be anything, right? And it could be a data mesh. It could be some kind of data architecture wherein there is one data lake, there is a service layer, and then all the applications are accessing the data from within the service layer. So now what happens is, doesn't matter which application lies in the center that stores the data. It doesn't matter because all the data resides in the databases, so to speak. They could be standard databases like Oracle and SQL Server, or they could be a group of commercially off-the-shelf applications that manage the data or what have you. And then there is a technology-neutral service layer, and then all the applications access the service layer and they access the data that they need. So, there have been many names that have been given to this architecture. It could be called a model view controller architecture, or it could be called a enterprise service bus, or it could be called service-oriented architecture. And now, as technology advances, we've got microservices and we've got data mesh architectures and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter what the architecture is, but essentially it's a technology-neutral architecture that is standardized for all applications. So now a proposal is given to the leadership team. The leadership team asks for the costs and the amount of time that would be needed to build this architecture, and the enterprise architects give them a general budget and timelines, and the leadership team decides that it's not a very good idea. Okay. Somebody in the leadership says that, we have two applications. The solution is simple. We just decide which application we want to keep and let the other application go. As simple as that. So we move all the data from application A to application B, for example, and then we let application A go and application B manages everything. The enterprise architects say it's not a very good idea, but they don't have the authority to make a decision about this. And so the leadership team goes ahead with the plan. They tell the enterprise architects, find out which application is hosting less data and which application is hosting more data, and what would be easier, to go from application A to B or B to A. Those are the two choices that you have. Either go from application A to B and let application A go, or go from application B to A and let application B go. Let me know. So, given the choices, enterprise architects decide that, okay, we'll stay with application B. We'll move the data from application A to B, and that's about it. And this is also a huge amount of data. It's not very simple, and it's very complicated because nobody knows which applications is accessing which data. So, you have to identify all the applications that are accessing data in A, rewire these applications to access the same data from application B, and then slowly move the data. It's a 5-year plan, basically. So year 1 goes as planned, year 2 goes as planned, year 3, migration is going on. About 60% or so of data of application A is moved into application B, 2 more years to go. And then what happens is the company that runs application A acquires application B and gives the company a 2-year period to clear out application B and move to application A. So now you're not left with a choice, right? The application vendor is now deciding that they want to decommission application B and everybody has to move to application A. This is a classic case where there is vendor dependency, where we are not technology neutral, we are dependent on a particular technology or a particular application, and where looking at the short-term benefits of costs, a technology decision was taken by a non-technology person. So eventually what happens is, they have to spend a tremendous amount of money to move all the data that they moved from A to B and the data that resides in B into application A and so on. So if the enterprise architects had the authority to take a decision, they would have. They would have gone with the right choice. They would have taken a technology neutral choice. They would have built a data mesh. They would have, in such a scenario, if the application A decides to buy application B, they can get rid of both application A and B, and they could go with something else because, your architecture is technology neutral. It doesn't matter where the data resides. Everybody would be able to still access the data through the service layer. The service layer abstracts the application dependency. I am not here to lecture you about technologies and about architecture. You're already very good at that. You're enterprise architects and you know what the right decision is. What I'm here to talk to you about is authority and power. Now this episode or this topic, I will split it into 3 parts. The first part will be why. So we've talked about why and how. And then in part 2, I'll talk about power and influence, and then we'll conclude. Is it possible for enterprise architects to have the authority and power to take decisions? I do not think so. It's not possible. Enterprise architects are usually always in a consulting role. All right. There used to be a time back in the day when enterprise architects were the governing body and the authority, and they would approve everything and so on. But in the modern day and age, overall the industry has decided that enterprise architects, if there is a formal enterprise architecture role in the organization, have to be in a consulting role. They can tell you what's the best thing to do, but the ultimate decision lies with the leadership team, and you would have to comply to whatever the leadership decides. And majority of the times, the leadership team is not enterprise architecture aware, right? They're not aware of the nuances of long-term decision making, which enterprise architects are. And that's why I always say, enterprise architecture is not a title and a designation. Please do not go for the title and the designation of enterprise architecture. Learn enterprise architecture so that you are better informed, so that you know how to take long-term strategic decisions for an organization. You are technology aware already. If you understand the business, if you understand the various nuances of enterprise architecture, when you become a leader, when you have the authority and the decision-making power, you would be able to make better decisions. Now, the question then arises is, how do we go about it? So first of all, that I want to establish in this part of this series is, don't strive for a consulting role. Let the consulting role be a stepping stone towards leadership. Okay? Let it be an environment where you'd get to learn enterprise architecture, where you'd get to learn business. You'd get to learn technology. You'd get to learn people. You'd get to learn communication. You'd get to learn how the decisions are being made, right? And then later on, when you are a leader, when you are at a position where you can take decisions, you would be better aware of the nuances of enterprise architecture, you'd be able to take better decisions eventually. So I want to inspire you that let 2026 be a year where you strive towards authority and power and influence, where you strive towards a role that gives you the authority to take decisions, to take better decisions, to make the organization better. I hope you are enjoying the videos that I'm posting on Enterprise Architecture Radio. If you are, then please let YouTube know. Like, share, and subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you would like to hear. Let me know if you'd like to hear more about such topics, because these are not directly related to enterprise architecture. We are not talking about frameworks here. We're not talking about TOGAF or how enterprise architecture needs to be done. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about power. We're talking about authority. We're talking about how to build influence within the organization in the next 3 episodes. Once again, Enterprise Architecture Radio is not just a podcast. It is a collaboration platform. I'm trying to get together, all the intellectual people out there to come together and talk to each other and learn from each other and guide each other. But most importantly, have a ton of fun.